Welcome back to Paul's Tech News. Despite the general feeling this past week, best summed up by that dog sitting in a burning house meme, there was in fact a fair amount of tech news, and since big distractions are trending, allow me to divert your attention towards Nvidia. You'll never guess what Jensen and company got up to this week, unless you guess that they continued to arrogantly wallow in the heady fumes of their own AI-powered success, trickling out the weakest possible GPU updates for gamers, whilst somehow still completely dominating the video card market, because that guess would be correct. Also, the PC market is crumbling from the foundation, DRAM bots are scooping up what little memory there is left to buy, and setups like this are soon to be required for PC builders so they can monitor hardware prices closely enough to avoid getting scammed by rampant price spikes. And yes, I have some good news today too, but you can't have your pudding if you don't eat your tech news.
Excellent!
Today's video is brought to you by Thermaltake's View 600 TG full tower chassis, featuring 4 tempered glass panels that provide an unobstructed view of your PC and support for massive 420mm radiators for AIO or custom cooling. Available in 5 distinct and unique colorways, including Future Dusk, the View 600 TG also supports hidden connector and eATX motherboards and includes an anti-sag GPU bracket and rotatable PCIe slots, as well as easily removable ventilation panels and plenty of room for cable management and added storage. There's an optional 6-inch LCD add-on too. For more on the View 600 TG from Thermaltake, click the sponsor link in the video description. I've been accused in the past, with very good reason, of laying the Nvidia criticism, or Nvidia-iticism, on pretty thick. But if it were true that I, who hold such dominant sway over the sentiments and predilections of the PC hardware community as a whole, had cast unfair aspersions upon the most noble Team Green, then surely gamers everywhere would be seeking alternative GPU options, and this report from John Petty Research on PC graphics market share would not exist. Numbers for Q4 2025 are in, and Nvidia has 94% market share when it comes to PC graphics add-in board shipments, up from 92% in Q3 and 10% up year over year, proving, apparently, that AMD's plan for Radeon GPUs of abandoning the entire high-end market, waffling about feature support, constantly selling the few 9000 series cards they did launch for well above MSRP, and completely forgetting Radeon GPUs even exist in the past few major CES keynotes, has not been very effective. Intel is, at least, still clinging desperately to their 1% share and deserves marks for consistency. In the face of such dauntingly fierce competition, it is unsurprising that Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang came off as fairly unconcerned in a discussion during the Morgan Stanley Technology, Media and Telecom Conference this week. Even regarding the shortages of memory, power, and other computer hardware that Nvidia has largely helped to foster, Jensen said, "Scarcity is good. I think the fact that everything is scarce is fantastic for us," the Nvidia CEO says. "In a world of constraint, you have no choice but to choose the best." So does that mean you do have a choice or you don't? Well, never mind that on the other side of that world of scarcity, the weakest players in terms of buying power and choice are individual consumers. And you might think, wow, Jensen doesn't think much of PC gamers who bought Nvidia GPUs for the past couple of decades, but I disagree. I don't think Jensen thinks of regular gamers at all anymore, unless decisions about gaming GPUs somehow impact the data center side of their business. At least he didn't try to eat one of his own GPUs this week, I guess. Regardless of all this, there's still only one short-term hope for the PC hardware market, and that's an AI crash. But even there, we're reliant upon Nvidia's decisions to a large degree. At least for now, Jensen says the recent investments in OpenAI and Anthropic are likely to be the last, but don't give them too much credit. Remember, those recent investments were a $30 billion commitment to OpenAI made just last week. And no, there was no GeForce GPU discussion during that interview. The only ghost of a rumor of something new on the gaming side was actually from Micron this week, who referenced the next wave of discrete GPUs in an article about their 24 gigabit GDDR7 memory modules, which run at up to 36 gigabits per second and have 50% more capacity than the 16 gigabit versions. The article somehow laments the lack of GPUs with more memory capacity while completely ignoring Micron's role in the current global shortage. But as far as can be told, this was probably written to hype the new GDDR7 in the lead up to the RTX 50 Super GPUs being announced, and they just decided to still publish it, even though Nvidia canceled or indefinitely delayed them, allegedly. But if those new GDDR7 chips with 50% more capacity do exist, I'm sure Nvidia will choose to use them in the coolest and most gamer-friendly way possible. Hey, Guess what Nvidia is doing with those new higher density GDDR7 chips? They're putting them in RTX 5050 cards in the worst way possible. In their continued desperate attempts to do anything but announce or launch the RTX 50 Super Series, Nvidia's GeForce team, per rumors shared by Mega-Sized GPU, has decided to finally get past the 8GB VRAM limit accusations they've faced for the last couple generations by upgrading the most underpowered card in the 50 series, the RTX 5050, to 9 gigs by way of 3GB GDDR7 chips instead of 4 2GB GDDR6 chips. While this will shrink the bus to 96-bit, the speed upgrade for GDDR7 should make up for it, depending on the final VRAM clock speed, of course. But with a theoretical 28 gigabits per second clock, you get about 5% more bandwidth, along with 12.5% more VRAM by way of that extra gig. So if it's going to be a faster card, why would I be mad about it? A few reasons. Nvidia still seems to be skimping on the VRAM as much as possible, and I'd prefer to see 12GB 128-bit 5050s or 5060s over this option, as that would likely provide a more significant performance boost for budget gamers, as well as significantly more VRAM. Now, if Nvidia sticks with the same MSRP, I'll feel a little bit different, but the existing 5050 has been selling over MSRP for the past couple months, so I'm not optimistic. Another bone Nvidia seems to be throwing budget gamers is the also rumored RTX 5060 GB205 mentioned in the same article, basically using the lowest possible binned 5070 dies for a 5060 while forcing AIBs to design a new PCB for the larger chip. And finally, there's the RTX 3060, which, per a rumor on board channels, might come back in mid-March, a card that originally debuted in February 2021, and while it's not known whether they'll be bringing back the 8GB or 12GB version, I think we can all guess which one, given current memory availability. But whether it's Nvidia finding a home for the most underperforming GDDR7 chips that they can't put in AI GPUs, or RTX 5070 dies that weren't up to snuff, this all feels pretty weak. And I can't help but think that a 9GB RTX 5050 feels more like Nvidia scraping the crusty dregs of the soup bowl and serving it to us like it's Christmas dinner while they feast with their AI bros next door. Speaking of scraping crusty things, it's time for Tech Briefs. I'd be remiss if I didn't warn you all that the end is near, and it shall come first for the entry-level PC market, or so said research firm Gartner in a late February report. Global surges in DRAM and SSD prices will cause smaller parts manufacturers to close and overall PC costs to climb until the sub-$500 market simply disappears. The more immediate effect will be a 10.4% and 8.4% decline in PC and smartphone shipments, respectively, in 2026, and I, for one, am glad that the woes of the budget PC gaming market will finally be over thanks to budget PCs no longer existing. There are also apparently DRAM bots, as reported by Datadome, who detected what is apparently a scalping operation pinging various retailers for pricing data on DDR5 memory as well as other components, often using sophisticated techniques to avoid detection. The report says they discovered more than 10 million requests from that bot alone, like a doggedly persistent booty caller, but unlike your mom, in this case, most of them were blocked. It's a frustrating reminder that when PC hardware becomes scarce, the situation can often be exacerbated by scalpers and resellers who might not know an SSD from a memory module, but only care if they can buy slightly lower and sell slightly higher. Okay, I promised you guys some good news too, and I think we're ready to turn that corner. I've also been asked for my take on this story about AB 1043, the Digital Age Assurance Act, and it's pretty simple. I live in California, this is a California law, therefore it is good. Glad that's sorted. I'm just kidding, of course. This law is dumb, and while it was signed by the governor back in October, it doesn't take effect until January 1st, 2027, so there is still time to figure out how it would even be enforced. It's supposed to be for age verification, but it places that burden on operating system developers for some absurd reason. It too broadly defines what an operating system provider even is, and it fails to account for open source options such as Linux. It also relies on self-reporting your age when you set up an operating system, which seems to undermine the whole purpose of the legislation, while also introducing big questions about privacy and tracking. I foresee some form of amendment or judicial strikedown in its future. Okay, how about some actual good news? The new head of Microsoft Gaming, Asha Sharma, has confirmed via tweet that the next-gen Xbox console is still in development. Hooray! And it is codenamed Project Helix, and will play both Xbox and PC games, basically making it a PC, even though they still want to call it a console. Should PC gamers care? I think that hell yes, we should care, and I also am totally viewing this as good news since it means that first, Microsoft sees a viable future for a next-gen console, actual hardware, which could mean they see a light at the end of the RAM shortage tunnel, and also the PC games crossover is a good thing for game development, where a broader install base can spur greater investment by developers. It also opens the door for their next-gen Xbox console to be codenamed Double Helix. But it's better than Xbox 360. Lastly, we shout out the PC Master Race subreddit where my boy Pedro keeps the peace and where fun community polls like this one pop up on occasion. And while the answer here is obvious, there are those who would look upon any of these setups and say, pathetic. And those people are apparently employed by the BBC, if this interesting as fuck post is trustworthy, and most Reddit posts are, of course. But how these desks aren't collapsing under the sheer weight of these 5x3 monitor arrays is astounding, and I now also aspire to one day configure a 15 monitor surround battle station so my mouse pointer can truly end up lost forever. I can't help but wonder what sort of GPU configuration they're using to feed all those panels, but please, next time, blur out that ghastly cable management. There might be children watching. Oh, and I do have one closing reminder. I have a giveaway still open for about one more day for these two 32GB DDR5 memory kits. The link is in the description. But there you have it, guys. Tech news for the week, and if you liked it, click that like button or leave me a comment down below. While you're down there, all of the articles I talked about today are linked in the video's description if you're interested, and you can check out my store at paulshardware.net for high-quality merchandise like t-shirts, hoodies, beer sets, and more. Subscribe to my channel is always a good call too. Thanks again, everyone. We'll see you next week.